Okay, let's try again. What a nightmare.
Hello.
There we go. Oh my days. This happens to me
We
every
got there
single time.
eventually.
Oh dear me.
I've never actually gone live on Instagram. This is a first, so I knew there was going to be a few teething problems me coming on, but I'm here now, so
Yep.
thank you.
No, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. Um
No problem.
yeah, this happens every time I go live. There's always either someone gets kicked out of the app and can't get back in, or we can't join, or the internet goes funny. It's just something different every single time. So fingers, like, thank God we've got it all sorted. Okay.
Hi everybody, thank you for all watching.
Yeah, there was 8 people on already. Brilliant. There's
Fantastic.
quite a few of your followers as well. I know that have been commenting on the post saying that they're looking forward to it. So, and I'm looking forward to it myself, just to give you the opportunity to, get your story out there and get people's support behind you and help you with your cause. So, I've been really looking forward to this. So we'll just jump into it then, I think.
Yes.
So can you explain in whatever way you feel is best, what made you start, or what made you and the other girls start the the page and your account and your campaign that you're doing, and what is the aim of the campaign that you are running?
Okay, so this time, when are we now? We're in July. So this time last year, we were actually all strangers. So we all met on, the power of social media. We all met on Facebook. Now, it was what had happened. It was a post that I seen from one of my Facebook friends,
Mm-hmm.
which was Rachel,
Yeah.
and she had put a post out there saying that they were going to bring teaching into schools, secondary schools, but teaching them about things like bondage and pornography. And I was like, whoa, hang on, why would you want to show children this and encourage this kind of sexual behavior? So
Yeah.
I replied on the status as you did, show my absolute horror to why we want children to learn that. I've got a 13-year-old son, by the way, so I
Yeah.
was like, no way. Like,
No.
even as adults, do we really need to, you don't need to know that unless you want to know it. So,
Yeah.
to be forcing this onto children, before the age of 16, I thought that was disgusting. So yeah, I my comment on there. So Rachel invited me to a group. So to begin with, it was just a group on Facebook, Education Hour, Stay Our Way. And I got introduced then to Kimberly Isherwood and some of the other girls as well. And, we were just having meetings and we were discussing, what was going to be coming into the Welsh curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this global rollout of sex education. Now, when they first started telling, I joined some of the meetings, and when it was Kimberly who was very passionate about this because she'd been following it for years.
Yeah.
So she knew about it, but didn't think it would come anywhere near our country because Wales has got a devolved government. So she
Mm-hmm.
didn't think it would. But then she did hear then that, she did see that the UNESCO was mentioned in the RSE draft. So she started thinking, whoa, it's coming into Wales.
Yeah.
So she wanted to spread awareness regarding that. Now, when she first started telling me about it, I found it very difficult to believe that this would ever come into Wales, well, the UK, let alone Wales. I really didn't think it would. So
Yeah.
I had to do my own research on it. So the first place I went was, Kimberly said about the All About Me schools, which was in 2018. It was put in 242 schools across England, and it was a pilot scheme for sex education. So if you haven't seen that, or if you don't know about it, there's a simple Google search and it'll come up with article after article
Mm-hmm.
of the content in this education program. And this included things like childhood masturbation and showing naked body parts to children as young as 6. Now, this was horrific because a lot of the parents didn't even know about it. I think there was one parent actually accidentally come across some of her son's homework and was like, what the hell is this, you know? And then obviously went to the school about it. And then there were, obviously then, there was uproar. And
Yeah,
at
of
first they
course.
brush it under the carpet and say, you know, call them religious nuts or whatever else they may want to say, you know, prudish, etc. But then it did get scrapped because it did have a lot of uproar. Now, the problem is, in 2020 then, in England, they have introduced this global rollout, and it is, as far as I'm aware, it's not mandatory in primary schools because there was a lot of, there's a lot of campaigns in England as well putting a stop to it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not yet mandatory in primary schools, but they are in some primary schools because we have had contact with a lot of parents, concerned parents, saying they can't actually take their children out of these classes. And one lady in particular was actually in a Christian school, and she was very upset, actually, that her child was learning about the right terms of body parts. Now, this thing about the right terms of body parts, a lot of parents and teachers are like, well, what's the problem? Well, what's the issue with that?
Yeah.
What it is, it's normalizing children to talk about private parts and see even like adult private parts. So it just becomes a normality to them.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing behind this is that they become more confident as they get older with sex. Now, I don't know about you, but I really don't think that children should be thinking about
No.
sex
It
at
shouldn't even
all.
be a pre-thought where you're thinking we're doing this because we want them to be comfortable in the future. That's something that they need to discover through the speaking to the parents, speaking to anybody that they trust, like a guardian. That has to come from appropriate conversations at an appropriate age with an appropriate
Yeah,
adult. Speaking to a
yeah,
child about it when they're primary school age, just because they want to be, you know, make sure that they're confident for in the future. Sorry, but if you really, really need to do that, then I would have a serious think about, you know, what the effect of it could be, which is obviously something we'll touch on shortly. But yeah, I completely agree with you there.
it's, do you know what? It's really quite, it to me, well, and I know a lot of people think the same. It's a scary concept when, you know, you want children to be confident talking about sex and sexuality. And, you know, I'll sort of go on as well to say about it, you know, part of this curriculum as well, if you read the documents, they want children to be confident in what their sexuality is before the age of 9. And, you know, when we're talking about sexuality, we're talking about, like, you know, whether they're bisexual, pansexual, and, you know, it's all these things that come out. And whereas, you know, obviously some children are going to grow up to be gay or lesbian or bisexual. My issue here is before children reach puberty, they're not thinking in a sexual way, and nor they should be.
Yeah.
However, if they're going to be putting this education out there, they're going to start thinking about, oh, you know, oh, do I fancy boys and girls? And they're not even emotionally mature enough to
Yeah.
be thinking that way. And what I'm finding, there is a lot of things on social media, and social media has got a lot to answer for.
Absolutely.
And what I am finding, because, you know, I speak to my own daughter, and, you know, she's on some social media platforms where, like, there's like children as young as 8 all claiming to be bisexual. Now, children as young as 8, they're thinking that because they love their friends. So now we're going to be coming into like a generation, you know, if we're bringing this in the education system as well, we're going to have like an education of children that are going to be very, very confused because they think that you know, their sexuality is X, Y, and Z. Well, in fact, no, you just love your girlfriends. Or, you know, even when it comes to sort of talking about whether you're in the right gender, you know, like there's information in these documents now saying that gender isn't affirmed from birth. Now, a lot of, like, I was a tomboy when I was younger. Now, we're going to have a lot of children who are like me,
Yeah.
that might sort of think, well, actually, I do like doing boy things. Oh, I do like hanging out. You know, the boys are fun to hang out with. You know, I like climbing trees like the boys.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're going to get a lot of confused children thinking, and, you know, the people who are pushing these agendas, if you like, believe that, do you know what? But they think that you can't be made, you know, like transsexual just by information given to you. But my concern is children are not emotionally ready to make decisions about sex, let alone, you know, huge decisions about
Yeah.
surgery and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to just be very, very confused, you know, where this sort of information is put there consistently within the education system.
Mm-hmm. Someone's just said, let me pull it up here. Private parts are discussed in biology along with other body parts, so it doesn't need to have a separate class or be made to both. I completely agree with that. They have biology lessons like this for a reason. And when they get to, I only remember, I remember having the sex education class when I was in year 6 at primary school, but I only ever really learned about the difference between male and female body parts, and you know what they, how it all works, and what they're really made for, which is obviously to reproduce in a way. That's what we were taught in biology when I was in, I think it was year 7, and
Yeah.
that's when I learned about different body parts and you know how they work and things like that. I don't remember learning about that in primary school, and
Yeah.
it's inappropriate for children to be, like you said earlier, being shown different body parts and being made to label them and things like that. They shouldn't have to do that. I mean, someone else said above in the comments earlier, where is it? Let me find it. Privates are private, as I tell my 5-year-old, end of. Absolutely. Your
Yes. Do
child's
you know
body is
what?
their body, and no one has any right to say any otherwise. They have the right to say, no, I don't want you to, you know, I want to be fully dressed in front of certain people. You know, some kids don't like being, you know, in swimming costumes and things like that in front of people because they are a bit self-conscious, and when they get to a certain age they decide that they would feel more comfortable fully dressed and things like that. So these children have the right to have control over their own bodies. Like, I don't understand how people can say otherwise, to be honest.
Well, do you know what someone said then about your body parts are private and that's it? That is, do you know what? That's all they need to know when they're little.
Yeah.
But these documents talk about, like, if you go back to the WHO, like I said about the UNESCO. So the RSE, it refers to UNESCO, but the UNESCO actually comes from the WHO document,
Mm-hmm.
and in there it talks about children as from birth being able to consent, um, and that is under the heading sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like when you say, it doesn't say consent, it said to say yes or no. Now, a child is not mature enough to consent. And if a child seems to consent, that's not lawful. And the person that is putting that child through that needs to be prosecuted.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as consent when it comes to children. All
Mm-hmm.
children need to know is, as your friend said, your privates are your privates and nobody else. That's it. That's all they need to know.
Yeah.
Anything where your bathing costume covers, no one else should touch that.
Yeah.
And you know, it's as simple as that. And someone else mentioned about biology. Yes, it was in biology. Now they've scrapped biology and put this RSE instead.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of biology, yeah, children do need to know about, you know, changes going on in their body.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to sex, all they need to know from a young age when they're, you know, going through the puberty is that it is used, sex is for making a baby. That's all they need to know. They
Mm-hmm.
don't need to know about it being fun, it being pleasurable. And this is the sort of thing that they want to bring into primary
Yeah.
schools. Why would a child in primary school need to know that
Yeah.
sex is pleasurable? They don't. All they need to know is how a baby is made, and that, well, even, you know, primary school I'd say is probably too young, depending on the individual child. And as you said before, you as a parent can actually gauge what age a child should know something. Like, for example, if your child has started their periods early, then of course you're going to have to speak to that child
Yeah.
about changes in her body.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, and every single child is unique. You know, in every class, you've got children who have autism or ADHD. They're going to find this very difficult to comprehend. So they don't seem to be taking that into account either.
No.
No, it's
It's
appalling. Like,
unbelievable.
it is unbelievable. Our main thing that we're like, when I first read it, I thought this is just setting our generation up for sexual deviancy. Because if you're learning and you're desensitized to sexual activity and sexual images from a very early age, by the time you get older, you're just gonna, you know, it's gonna make you go one of two ways. It's either gonna, like, completely turn you off,
Yeah.
or you're gonna be like,
You're going to be
you're
curious
desensitized.
and want to experiment with things. It's like
Yeah,
I've known, or I don't know people that have done this, but I have heard of stories where parents have thought that it's not, they couldn't be bothered, or they just didn't want to speak to their children about you know, changes in the body, puberty, what sex is, what sex should be, and instead of, you know, giving them the proper information at the correct age, they've shown them, just sat them in front of a video of porn and just said, you'll learn whatever you need to learn from that. And even my own boyfriend has told me recently, when I talked to him about doing this interview with yourselves, is because when he was in primary school, they were shown, I don't know what kind of video it was, he didn't really say, but the class that he was in was just, they put a video on in front of them, like basically people having sex, and that's how they
wow.
learned. But obviously then those children are going to have so many questions that they haven't had answered, and they will either do one or two things, like you said, want to go and ask questions. They might be curious and want to learn about it and start experimenting, but children shouldn't be exposed to these things, and you know, at the age they are,
Absolutely.
they shouldn't be in a position where they feel like they can be curious, because that's what the legal age of consent is for.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the legal age of consent is 16. Like, some people will get to the age of 16 and still not be emotionally ready for it. It doesn't mean you have to, you know, sort of
Yeah.
comply. But it's there for a reason, you know. It's there because it's, you know, children pre-16 are very rarely ready to embark on a sexual relationship.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen as well a lot that they've talked about the abstain way of, you know, sexual education, where you're teaching children that, you know, that is only for a long-term relationship, when you're in a loving relationship.
Yeah.
A lot of times, especially within religions, they say to wait till marriage, and they poo-poo that. They think that that's more psychologically damaging to a child than telling them that, hey, free for all, you know, try this, try this. And it just, you know, like, and if adults want to be promiscuous, I've got no problem with that. They do as they please. As adults, you do as you please. However, as children, there's a lot of mental and emotional distraught, if you like, if they do, you know, if they do sort of engage in these kind of activities too early, and with people that, you know, a partner that they're not necessarily in a long-term relationship with. And, you know, as you said, like, pre-16, you've got to be very, very careful what you're showing children and what you're encouraging them. Now, I know in England they've got a website called Sexwise, and this website is for teachers primarily, for them to have information as to what to speak to the children about, but the children have also got access to it as well. Now, one of the bits that we see, one of the girls that's in our team, Grace, she was just looking at it for some research, and she came across this part of like an exercise, if you like, that they would encourage children to do. And it would be, they said, about drawing a picture of you and your partner, and draw where you like to be touched. So children now in comprehensive school are being shown, just so they have, their attitude is they're going to have sex anyway, so let's make sure that it's good. And that's just no way to teach children at all. That's, absolutely appalling. And the only thing they ever say is, they do say that sex should never be violent, which of course it should never be violent. But that's the only thing that they seem to be against.
Yeah.
These documents, that's all they seem to, it just seems to be, as long as it's violent, as long as you consent, it's fine. But the problem is, a lot of children may consent because they think it's the cool thing to do.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well, yeah.
Or they don't want to upset their partner.
Yeah.
So,
all their friends are doing it and they feel left out, and they feel like they're going to, lose friendships that are so important to them as a child. But they feel like if they don't have sex with somebody, even pre-16, especially pre-16, that they will lose these really important friendships that they literally is like, it's their whole world, isn't it, really? When you're a kid, it's all about spending time with your friends and, feeling involved in things. So when a child gets to the age, if they're, pre-16 and they've decided that they think they are ready for sex because their friends are forcing them into it, or they feel pressured into it, then that can also be psychologically damaging. It could be an awful experience for them. They may feel like, things like regret may set in. They may regret doing it, and then that just, again, it's just causing all sorts of mental health issues and trust issues if they are hurt by the person that they do it with, or things like that. And it's scary to think that these children feel like they have to do that before they're 16 years old. And it's a shame that children these days don't feel like they can wait until they're 16 years old to make that proper, legal decision that they feel like they are ready and mature enough for. It's just a shame that they feel forced to do it, due to peer pressure or society or social media. It's got a lot to answer for, like you said earlier.
Do you know, like, if they want to educate children, then let's educate them.
Yeah.
And, I've said this before, let's educate them on the mental, the emotional, and the physical damage that can be caused by early sexual activity.
Yeah.
We've actually, a very interesting lady, Miriam Grossman. Now, she is American, and this education's been going on for years in America. And she was, I think she was a doctor, she said, at one of the high schools. And what she noticed, with this education becoming more, what's it called? Becoming more, I can't think of the word, but becoming, with this education, in the schools, if you like, she was noticing that a lot of girls were coming in with mental health issues based on the fact that they were feeling really low. And when she got to the bottom of it, these girls were actually having sexual activity with their partners, and it made them feel really bad. And she was noticing that this was happening more and more, so she ended up doing a study on what was really going on here. And she's an amazing woman, and there's a book that she read. I did write it down because I do forget a lot of things. So I've written down the book that she wrote. Where is it? Miriam Grossman. She's written a book, and it's called "You're Teaching Our Children What?" That's the name of her book, and she actually goes into saying what was being taught in the schools and how harmful it was for children to be engaged in all these sexual activities. Now, it's not just, they weren't even just teaching about sex per se, it was actually talking about toys and all things, bondage, all things that, the children really shouldn't be messing around with. And what she's done with her research is actually spoken about the physical damage that can actually be done with, sort of penetration for girls and for anal penetration as well. When it's early on, when we're not actually developed properly as children.
Yeah.
So there's more chance of infection. There's more chance of, you know, sort of long-term damage when they're messing about, you know, when they're doing things like this from a young age. So if they want to educate our children, educate them properly. Don't go saying, you know, as long as it's fun, as long as you're consenting, as long as it's not violent, then, you know, fine, just go for it. I don't want my children to be taught that. You know, and another thing as well, we've all got different morals as parents, and the schools and the state are not in any, they're not in a place to take over the parental role of teaching our children morals, because that's up to us as parents.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Definitely.
like,
I mean,
you know,
they've got so much that they can teach that, you know, while the kids are in school, but they have to leave the rest of it to the parents. That's up to them to teach it. It's like we don't expect the school to teach children how to use a knife and fork. That's something they learn at home, and it's a bit of a bad analogy, but it's the only thing I could really think of at the moment. But it's like there's some things you learn at school, and there's other things you learn at home from your parents or from your guardians and, you know, adults in your life. So yeah, I agree with that absolutely.
yeah. And like the other thing, like, you know, other sort of like brick walls that we've come across is them saying about the safeguarding issue. So they say that sometimes in the home there is an issue. Now, if you as a teacher cannot establish that there's an issue with a child, if they're acting a little bit sort of off, if they're trying to disclose something that you don't understand because they're not using the proper terms, now that's a problem with the education system in terms of the teachers need more safeguarding education.
Yeah.
Don't teach children about inappropriate stuff just because the adults don't know how to spot things. So it's up to parents, teachers, and the community as a whole to make sure that a child is safe. So if a child is doing something that's a little bit, I'll go back to something as well. You know, I talked about the childhood masturbation where they were teaching children as young as 6 about that. Now, part of that is what they say is, we all do it, there's nothing dirty about it, but you've got to do it in private. This is what they say. Now, Kimberly Ishwood, who's our founder of PCP Wales, she's a criminologist, and she said that's a huge barrier to disclosure, because if you're telling children who are self-stimulating, which, you know, sometimes they do, there are some children that do, but some of those children may actually be doing it because of neglect or abuse. So straight away, if you're telling children you don't do that unless it's in private, you know, like that could actually be a disclosure. If a child does do something like that in the classroom, it would be a huge red flag straight away, and that sort of thing would be investigated. The problem is now, if they're talking about it in the classroom, they're all know about it. So anything that's said or done, they're going to say, well, they've learned about it in class. You know, nothing's going to really be taken serious anymore, because they just think, well, you know, it's a little example was my sister's boy was taught about, I don't know why they were teaching, but they were teaching them about pharmaceutical drugs. Now, he mentioned drugs in front of my sister, and she was just like, oh, because when he hears something, hang on, sorry, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, don't worry.
Okay. When he hears something, he repeats it all the time. So she felt the need to go into the teacher and goes, he's mentioning drugs. I don't know where he's got it from. It's not from us. And they said, oh, it's no problem. We've been talking about drugs in school. So straight away, if you're talking about something in school, they're going to think, you know, if one of the children start talking about something to do with sexual activity, then they're going to think, oh, we're talking about that in school. Nothing's going to be taken seriously anymore.
Yeah, you're going to lose those opportunities and those, you know, chances to spot signs of abuse, which is what a lot of, obviously, all teachers are, you know, trained to look out for and, you know, report and, you know, record down properly. So, like you said, if it's becoming a normal thing to just talk about, whether you're at home or at school, you're losing those chances to spot signs of abuse because it's becoming normal and not inappropriate. So yeah, exactly. It's unbelievable.
There's so much wrong with this. It's unbelievable. There is so much wrong. And if anybody wants to just do a research, because I don't expect people to just take my word for it. If you put controversial sex education into your search engine, even on Google, you will actually see so many countries with really, really inappropriate stuff that's in these schools already.
Yeah.
Scotland are really bad. Scotland have had this for a couple of years, and they actually had, you go onto YouTube and there's an educational short video clip, and it's actually talking about threesomes and like making out it's just like a normal thing. We don't want children to think that that sort of thing is normal. That's very damaging for any young girl, well, for most women as well.
Yeah.
So they talk about bondage as well, like it's normal, facial ejaculation, and it's all done in like a cartoony thing that looks all colourful and pretty for that's attractive to children.
Yeah.
So we can't be having our children watching things like that. In fact, a lot of the images that they put up on the news were pixelated. So there was images that they were putting in, and this was in England as well. There's images that they were putting in the classroom, but it was too graphic for the 6 o'clock news. That's
So how's that
worrying.
appropriate for children then in a classroom?
Exactly.
Like, it blows my mind that people think this is normal. And like you said, people need to do their own research, look into this properly. That was going to lead me on to my next question, actually. So what advice would you give to parents who are either going to be listening or watching this back later on? What advice would you give to them to help them make the best decision that they feel is appropriate and correct and, morally right for their children and their family? What advice would you give them? Is it like research or speaking to the schools, things like that?
Yeah, well, I would certainly say, like, look out now. Like, as I said, the education is not mandatory in primary schools yet, but look out they should send a letter to you to inform you that these classes are taking place. A lot of the schools as well are allowing you to have the withdraw option. So if you haven't had a letter, I do know one lady in particular that didn't have the letter. She was absolutely distraught, and the school turned around and goes, "Oh yeah, we forgot to send it out," and suddenly her son was in the class. Now I would suggest that we've actually got template letters on our website. So you can either just copy our template, fidget with it as you wish, or go and speak to the school directly with with concerns as to what they're going to be teaching and when. The template letter is on our website. If you go to publicchildprotectionwales.org, and I think it's a section called templates. It's either resources or templates.
Okay.
So if you've got an issue, just send me a message and I'll send the link straight over. So we have got templates there for people to send letters to the school. We need as many parents as possible to be aware of this and to put pressure on the schools. We've also got a template letter as well for the local authorities. So we need people to put pressure on the local authorities as well, because the more people that are putting pressure on them, the more chance that they're gonna, they're not gonna be able to carry this on if everybody is saying no. I'm not having this. So we do, as parents, we all need to rise. We all need to step up. We're actually going to be going as far as, we've been speaking to a legal team as to, why has it got into Wales? We're actually in the process of doing that at the minute. Obviously, everything takes time, as it does. And very much so, this education has been sort of swept under the carpet as well. What I was going to say as well, the good thing is if you are a good parent, you can still guide your children. Even though you don't want them to hear all this stuff, you can still give them good advice. My main concern is the children who are in care and in the welfare system, they haven't got a chance in hell if this is going on. Because my option is I can take my children out of school, I can homeschool them. There's a lot of parents that can actually do the same. But there are going to be a lot of children that are going to be stuck in that system, which is why we're fighting to actually take it out of the schools altogether.
And they don't have people that can speak on their behalf as a child, because obviously as a child we know that you can only have so much of a voice. So even if you aren't a parent and you are concerned about any nieces or nephews or family friends who've got kids, and if you want to do, take it upon yourself to tell these people about what's going on, do that, because the more, like you said, the more people know, the stronger the, I don't know if the word army is correct, but the stronger the force about getting this taken off the education system. Because it's, if people don't know about it, they don't know that there's an issue, so they don't know that something can be done. So the more people you do tell, the better it is, because you're passing on that knowledge, and then they pass it on to 10 people, and then those 10 people pass it on to another 10. And before you know it, the word's out there. And like you said, there's going to be more of an uproar, and parents will be pulling their kids out of these sex education programs and things like that.
Yeah.
Someone here said, I, at 12 years old, escaped 7 years of sexual abuse and sex trafficking. Oh, my word. I mean, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that, I know how hard that is to actually share, information and experiences like that, because I myself am a survivor of child abuse at the hands of my own father. So I just want to say that I'm proud of you for sharing that. It's a really hard thing to do, especially on such a public platform. You should be so proud of yourself for everything you've been through, and still here this day to talk about it. So I
It's
will.
really, you know what? It's actually like survivors like yourself, and the lady that spoke there. It's survivors like yourself that you're the ones that bring it to light. That people wouldn't know about it otherwise. It'd just be. There's so many circumstances where it's just swept under the carpet,
Yeah.
and nobody really realizes like the severity of it and how bad. This kind of thing is, but it's the people who actually get through it. They were victims, but now they're survivors. They get through it, and you're the people that can really help others, because you actually understand exactly how it feels, how you ended up like in that position.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very difficult, and it's awful to a journey to sort of get over that experience. But yeah, survivors like yourselves, I'm very, very grateful for.
Well, I was going to say the same thing to you, actually. I'm grateful for people like, you and all the other girls on the team that have actually heard about this issue and haven't just sat back and complied with it and just thought, oh, it's going to be fine. You've disagreed with what's going on, and you've actually decided to do something about it, instead of just sitting on your backsides and just letting it carry on. Because
Yeah,
what good is that going to do? You know what I mean? So,
and we've had like a lot of what's it called? A lot of backlash, even from close friends, and they're like saying, no, what are you on about? This is good. Children are learning, to sort of stay safe and consent. And you're like, no, if you actually could see what is in the other countries already.
yeah.
And like now it's becoming a little bit more obvious that it's in this country as well. But no, that's in America, that's in Finland. It wouldn't come over here. They really did
It
truly
already
believe
is
that
here.
the government wouldn't. Yeah, well, the government actually signed up to the WHO document in 2017. All our governments did.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the document that says that children are sexual beings from birth. Who in the right mind would sign up to that document? Now, there's either been a huge amount of negligence where they've just signed up to it without taking note of what it actually entails, or they've been pushed into it, because we all know the World Health Organization is a very powerful body, or they're complicit. It's one of three things.
Yeah.
But the fact is, they have brought that document into our school, our education system, and it really isn't on. It really isn't on. It's they talk about children's rights. Well, children have got the right to be children. Children do not
Absolutely.
need to be sexualized.
Yeah, children cannot consent. So people that are saying things like, it's teaching them how to consent. Children cannot consent. That's what people need to realise. They shouldn't be in a position where they have to consent to any sexual activity at all. People need to realise that, yes, we need to teach them to be safe, but that, to me, in my opinion, means teaching children that if somebody does touch them in an appropriate way, or, you know, tries anything in a sexual activity, that they have to, or you know, they should be reporting it to the parents. They should be going to them and saying, this is what happened, this is who did it. But that's what we should be teaching our kids, that they have an input, like a safe person they can go to disclose these kind of things if they were to happen. God forbid that, you know, I'm not saying that every child, you know, is going to be abused at some point in their life. That's not, I know that's not true, but it's happening every single day to millions of children, and people need to realize that these children often don't have people that they can go to, whether it's parents, like you said, people that, you know, the children in the care system, they don't have people that they can disclose these things to. So like you said earlier, these things do go unreported, and people just go their whole lives without ever telling anybody about it. And it's people like that that, you know, that's why I do what I do. That's why I use my voice for those people. It's, you know, the saying is, be a voice for the voiceless. And that's exactly why I do what I do, because I know that there is children out there that they will go, you know, up until their death, and they will be on their deathbed, and they will have never told anybody about what they've experienced as a child. And it's so sad to think that those people, you know, those kids don't have somebody to talk to. Like, it absolutely breaks my heart. And I try not to think about it too much, but I'm reminded of it every single day when I come onto this platform and I see these paedophile and predator accounts with photos of people that aren't, kids that aren't even theirs, in such a disgusting, you know, I don't even want to go into too much detail about it because it's very triggering for a lot of people, and I don't want to do that. But I see it every day when I'm reporting these accounts, and I don't think a lot of people realise that it's literally in front of your face on Instagram. All you've got to do is search certain phrases or certain words, and these accounts, there'll be millions of them, and there's only so much that accounts like myself can do. That's why we share these, you know, these accounts to other people, to get the awareness out there and to get their help on reporting them. And that's why you need to learn about the stuff that, you know, people like ourselves are trying to tell people that are watching or listening to this, and then they decide then what they want to do, and they can go and, you know, share that information with people that they know, their family, their friends. So that was going to lead on to my last question, actually. How can
can I sort of like just add to that as well?
yeah, of
Like, it's
course, yeah.
absolutely horrendous, all the stuff on social media. Now, I've said this over and over again. If the government really wanted to, if the social media platforms really wanted to, they'd put a stop to it.
Absolutely,
there wouldn't
yeah.
be They would put a stop to it. They shadow ban people for putting, you know, silly little things on, and oh, that doesn't agree with our narrative, we're gonna close that account down. They do it all the time.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to, there wouldn't be any paedophiles on social media grooming children. If they really wanted to, they would. And it really, really does. Oh God, it really makes me angry that it's allowed to carry on like that, and they've just got a free reign of these platforms, these disgusting people. And, you know, children, they don't bloody stand a chance, don't they? You know, with all that going on. And yeah, very frustrating. They should be spending, instead of spending millions of pounds putting this sex education in school, they should be spending millions of pounds getting this off our children's platforms, full stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's somebody I know, Alex Betts, she actually shared a post in the last month or so, I can't remember exactly when it was, but she shared a post. She had been given some amazing sea moss by Samantha Brown, which obviously I know that you know of her as well. Her company, One Self Wellbeing, she actually shared a picture of a smoothie in one of Samantha Brown's sea moss jars. She'd made a smoothie. It was taken down for hate speech or something like that, but they can't take down the thousands of accounts that are being reported every day, and millions of accounts in general that have these photos of these children and videos of these children being exploited and abused every single day. It's not as if they don't have the money or the resources to be able to do it. They can take a picture down of a Kardashian's unedited photo within 3 minutes if they ask them to, but they can't take down these accounts that people are reporting every single day in numbers of like hundreds of thousands. People reporting the same accounts every day, and nothing's done. It's honestly ridiculous. It really is. I don't understand how they can actually expect us to believe that they don't have the money or the resources. How
I
do
totally.
unbelievable?
It is unbelievable. I had a similar, actually, one of my friends, he advertised oh God, what was it? A day of solace. So it was a day where there was lots of health practitioners who were talking, they were going to be sort of giving advice. So it was a free day that he was advertising on Facebook. They took it down. They blocked it. For what? He's advertising how to keep healthy, and similar thing that happened to your friend there with a smoothie. It's like they want to take everything. Well, that's going down in a completely new subject, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I mean, it's quite laughable, really. I mean, she found it hilarious at first. I don't know if it got put back on again, but she was just like, I have to laugh or I will cry at it, because this is honestly, it's ridiculous. Like, yeah. So my last question will be, how can people support you and the team, and get behind you guys and help you with the campaign that you're trying to achieve?
I'm glad you asked that, because we've actually got a protest on Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday the 11th. We are all down Cardiff. So we're meeting at Cardiff Castle at 1 p.m. and we're going to be doing a march. We're hoping there's going to be horses there as well. So we're going to do a march from Cardiff Castle to Cardiff Bay. So once we get to Cardiff Bay, we'll be outside the Senedd, which is the Welsh Parliament building, and we're going to do our talk. So we've done many of these protests before, and every time we do them, they get a little bit fuller every time. So if you're not doing anything Sunday, or even if you are, drop it and come down.
Yeah, absolutely.
we have a good time as well. Like, we have children there, we bring our children. When it comes to the talks, when it gets to the point that we know we're going to be talking about things that are a little bit inappropriate, we tell everyone, and the children are sort of we people who have got the kids then can take their kids somewhere else. But we do try not to make it too much about the inappropriate stuff. Just want to spread awareness about it. So Sunday the 11th, from Cardiff Castle down to the Senedd building. On the 12th of July as well, which is my birthday. 21 again. On the 12th of July, then we're doing a school sit-out. So we're asking parents to send a letter to their schools to say that they're not sending their children to school in protest for the RSE.
Yeah.
So if you want to join us in that, we've got a template letter on our website, so you can send that letter to explain why your children are not in school on that day. So we're hoping for this to be a bit of a UK-wide thing, where a lot of children are going to be off school for that reason. So that's some ways to support us. Also, if you do want to volunteer your time, whether it is helping out with our protests, so sort of like help out being some of the stewards, because we're always looking for volunteers, then get in touch. Also, if you want to give out leaflets to your local area or put up posters in your local area to spread awareness, let us know, because we'll send down some posters to you. Also, we were doing 2 weekly meetings where we were all getting together on Zoom and discussing things. We're not doing that at the moment, but if you are interested in helping out more, please get in touch, and we'll get those meetings up and running again, so we can really discuss ways of moving forward with our campaign. So and also we have got merchandise as well, so we sell our merch. So that's another way of spreading awareness. So if you want a hoodie, jumper, and we also do like mugs, water bottles, sort of coasters. We've got all things like that going on. So if you did want to buy key rings as well, if you want to buy some merchandise to spread awareness, then that's another way that you can support. But it's all about spreading awareness. Soon as well, once we get this, I was saying about the legal thing that we were going down. We were talking to the legal team. Now we're going to be needing to, we're looking down, we could possibly have the legal aid route
Okay.
However, there may be the possibility that we do need to raise some funds for that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can just look out on our pages, I'll be sharing it on our Instagram page and also on our Facebook, our Twitter
Okay.
accounts as well. So we will be needing to raise money for that court case as well. So that should be out very shortly as well.
Brilliant. That's great. You've answered that absolutely amazingly.
Okay,
I mean, there's so many other ways that, you know, amazing ways there that you've mentioned that people can support you. And I would really encourage and ask people to donate or to buy merchandise, just spread awareness. Like you said, that's the most important thing. And I'll keep my eye out for the fundraising link whenever that happens. Just send that to me. I can share that for you as well.
Thank you so much.
And anything I can do, you know where I am. I'm always here to help you guys. I mean, I think you're absolutely amazing for what you're doing, and I'm so thankful for people like you. You're absolute angels, you really are. And thank you so much for jumping on tonight. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, not a problem at all. Well, thank you so much for jumping on. I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening because I kept you a bit longer than I originally said, so apologies for that.
Lovely. It's been lovely speaking to you, and yeah, thank you for everyone for watching as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, lovely. I'll speak to you soon then, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.